of scientific study called psychoneuroimmunology focuses on the effect that mental and emotional activity has on physical well-being, indicating that patients can play a much larger role in their recovery. Seeing a connection between people's thoughts and feelings and their health is nothing new. Rosenbaum points out, we have known for over 2,000 years from the writings of Plato and Galen that there is a direct correlation between the mind, the body, and one's health. Poet John Milton wrote, the mind is its own place, and it itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Your attitude has a profound influence on how you see the world, and thus on the way you live out your life. Attitude is important. It is so important that it truly is the difference maker. It isn't everything, but it is one thing that can make a difference in your life. If you want to maximize your attitude and learn how to make it your greatest asset, then turn the page, because that is the subject of the next chapter. Chapter 4. How to make your attitude your greatest asset. Former Yankee and Hall of Fame baseball player Yogi Berra has often been quoted as saying, life is like baseball. It's 95% mental, and the other half is physical. The former catcher and manager's math may not be perfect, but he does understand the power that thinking has on a person's ability to succeed. How many jobs do people lose every day because of attitude issues? How many times are others passed over for promotion because of the way they approach their job and other people? How many marriages fall apart? It would be impossible to calculate. No one should ever lose a job, miss a promotion, or destroy a marriage because of a poor attitude. Why? Because a person's attitude is not set. It is a choice. Pastor, professor, and author Chuck Swindoll says, attitude to me is more important than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. How to choose the right track. 1. Take responsibility for your attitude. Singer Roberta Flack recalls, my mother had only gone as far as the 10th grade, and my father had a 3rd grade education. But they were both very literate. They spoke well, and their values were high. They drummed into our heads that the situation you live in doesn't have to live in you. Our attitudes don't come from our circumstances or personal history. Attitude does not come from outside ourselves. It comes from within. The first rule of winning is don't beat yourself. If your attitude isn't as good as it could be, and you fail to take personal responsibility for it, then you are beating yourself. However, if you look in the mirror and can honestly say, the attitude I possess is my responsibility and no one else's, then you're on your way. 2. Evaluate your present attitude. To improve your attitude, you need to assess where you're starting from. This may take some time, and depending on how self-aware you are, it may even be difficult. The key is to try to look at yourself objectively, to separate yourself from your attitude. Your goal isn't to condemn yourself, it's to see yourself clearly so that you can make positive changes to the way you think. Here's how to proceed. Identify problem feelings about yourself. Many times our feelings come into play long before we become consciously aware of them intellectually. So, let's start with feelings. When do you feel most negative about yourself? Write down your answers. Identify problem feelings related to others. Attitude issues often relate to other people. What causes you the greatest problems when dealing with others? Once again, write down your answers. Identify problem thinking. We are the sum of our thoughts, and we cannot for any length of time behave in a way that is inconsistent with our thinking. So, the question you must answer is this: what negative thoughts consistently control your mind? Write down your answers. If you simply read through those questions without actually taking time to think through and write down your answers, then I want to encourage you to do so now. Why? Because you will not be able to change your attitude for the better unless you know what is currently impacting it for the worse. When professional loggers are floating logs down a river and they discover a log jam, they climb a large tree near the river so they can look over the problem and find the cause. What they're looking for is the key log that is creating the problem. Once they remove that, the river takes care of the rest. An inexperienced person could spend hours, days, even weeks moving around logs without results. Your attitude may be similar. You don't necessarily need to change all of your thinking, just the few items that are keeping a positive attitude from flowing in you. 3. Develop the desire to change. The desire to change is the key to growth in all areas of life. Ironically, most people desire improvement, yet at the same time they resist change. The problem is that you cannot get one without having the other. Change is possible, but only if you want it badly enough. As Fred Smith observed, you are the way you are because that's the way you want to be. If you really wanted to be any different, you would be in the process of changing right now. Comedian Jerry Lewis is reported to have said that the best wedding gift he received was a film of the entire wedding ceremony. Why was that his favorite gift? He said it was because when things got really bad in marriage, he would go into a room by himself, close the door, run the film backwards, and walk out a free man. Of course, change is never that easy. It takes lots of time, tremendous amounts of energy, perseverance, and of course, desire. That's not a decision you make once and forget about. You need to cultivate that desire every day. It's said that when Earl Weaver, one-time manager of Major League Baseball's Baltimore Orioles, was unhappy with a call by an umpire, he used to charge out of the dugout and shout at him, "Are you going to get any better, or is this it?" If you want to change your attitude, you need to ask yourself a similar question. Are you going to keep working and trying to get better, or is this as good as it gets? 4. Change your attitude by changing your thoughts. Norman Vincent Peale, author of Power of the Plus Factor, wrote that he once came across a tattoo studio in the twisted streets of Kowloon in Hong Kong. In the window were drawings of the hundreds of choices of tattoos available from the artist who worked there. One in particular really struck him. It said, "Born to Lose." Peale was appalled that anyone might actually ask to have that permanently written on his skin. He went inside and asked the Chinese artist, "Does anyone really have that terrible phrase, 'born to lose,' tattooed on his body?" "Yes, sometimes," the artist answered. "But I just can't believe anyone in his right mind would do that." The artist tapped his forehead and in broken English said, "Before tattoo on body, tattoo on mind." The human mind has a tremendous amount of power in our lives. That which holds our attention determines our actions. Because of that, where we are today is the result of the dominating thoughts in our minds. And the way we think determines what our attitudes are. But, as I've already said, the good news is that you and I can change them. You can control your thoughts, and because of that, you can control your attitude. Let's do an experiment that will show you what I mean. First, take a moment to think about the place where you live. Problem? You decided to think about it, and you did it. Okay, now I want you to think of something else. Imagine for a moment that the place where you live has burned to the ground, and everything in it is gone. What kind of emotional response did you have? Maybe you were sad because many irreplaceable things would have been lost in the fire. Maybe you were happy because your current living situation is terrible and a fresh start would do you good. The point is that your thinking prompts your emotion. That's key, and here's why. Major premise: we can control our thoughts. Minor premise: our feelings come from our thoughts. Therefore, we can control our feelings by changing the way we think. Why is that important? Because your attitude is your emotional approach to life. It's the framework through which you see events, other people, even yourself. That's why I believe the saying, you are not what you think you are, but what you think you are. Sales trainer Ryan Azar says, sales are not made or unmade inside the prospect's office. They are made or unmade inside you. In sales, if your attitude is positive and you believe you can help the prospect with your product or service, then the most difficult work is already done. It all depends on your thinking. The same thing works in other professions too. Once, while flipping through a copy of ESPN's magazine, I saw an Adidas ad that arrested my attention. Here's what it said. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. Most of the great work in this world was done by men and women who didn't believe that what they were doing was impossible. Talent is certainly beneficial, but only the right attitude can release it to reach its potential. 5. Develop good habits. An annoyed middle-aged woman approached the clerk at her local bookstore. Every time I come in here to buy a bestseller, you're sold out, she criticized. Why can't you people learn to stock your store more efficiently? I'm so sorry, apologized the clerk. What is the title of the book you want to purchase? It's called How to Remain Young and Beautiful, the woman responded. Okay, replied the clerk. I'll place an order for How to Remain Young and Beautiful, and I'll mark the order urgent. Much of what we do every day comes from habitual behaviors. Over the course of time, we have developed a way of approaching life. We treat people a particular way, as the lady in the bookstore did. If we desire to get different results out of life, then it's not enough to change only our thinking. We also need to change our habits. Why? Because if we don't, we will revert back to our old thinking. In fact, some people recommend changing behavior first. Psychiatrist William Glasser says, if you want to change attitudes, start with a change in behavior. In other words, begin to act the part as well as you can of the person you would rather be, the person you most want to be. Gradually, the old, fearful person will fade away. I don't know which has to come first, the thinking or the habits. It's like the chicken or egg question. But I do know this, they are connected, starting with negative thoughts and going clockwise. Negative thoughts leads to negative beliefs, leads to wrong decisions, leads to wrong actions, leads to continual actions, leads to bad habits. As you can see, negative thoughts lead to negative beliefs. Those beliefs become the basis of wrong decisions, which lead to wrong actions. When those wrong actions are continually repeated, we develop bad habits. We perpetuate a bad attitude. And that bad attitude prompts negative thoughts. It can be a vicious cycle. However, you can break the cycle by cultivating positive thoughts and developing good habits. Fortunately, habits are not instincts. They are actions or reactions that we have acquired over time. If you can pinpoint the original cause in your thinking that prompts a bad habit, you can change it. 6. Manage your attitude daily. One of the most significant discoveries of my life was realizing that we often place too much emphasis on making decisions and too little on managing the decisions we've already made. This discovery was so significant to me that I wrote a book about it called Today Matters. The thesis of the book is that successful people make right decisions early and manage those decisions daily. You can make a decision to have a good attitude, but if you don't make plans to manage that decision every day, then you are likely to end up right back where you started. But here's the good news. Maintaining the right attitude is easier than regaining the right attitude. How do you do that? A Chinese proverb I came across gives insight. Assume a cheerfulness you do not feel, and shortly you feel the cheerfulness you assume. Or as editor and publisher Elbert Hubbard says, be pleasant until 10 a.m., and the rest of the day will take care of itself. When you get up in the morning, you need to remind yourself of the decision you've made to have a positive attitude. You need to manage your thinking and direct your actions so that they are consistent with your decision. If you take responsibility for your attitude, recognizing that it can change how you live, managing it every day, and cultivating and developing positive thoughts and habits, then you can make your attitude your greatest asset. It can become the difference maker in your life, opening doors and helping you overcome great obstacles. The Big 5 Attitude Obstacles. Before we move on to Chapter 5, I want to pause for a moment and talk to you about the Big 5 Attitude Obstacles people face. In the first 4 chapters of this book, I've tried to give you a track to run on for creating and maintaining a positive attitude. However, to help you on your way, I need to give you something more. Maintaining a positive attitude while living life is a lot like running a race that includes hurdles. Some people expect life to be easy and smooth. When they encounter a hurdle, they become surprised, angry, or fearful. They don't think they should be expected to deal with such things. So they wait around for someone to remove the obstacle. They try to find a shortcut around it, or they simply give up and stop running. And during the process, their attitude gets worse and worse. Successful people expect to face hurdles. They know that overcoming obstacles is a normal part of life, and they plan accordingly. They face their challenges instead of fearing them. They embrace the idea expressed by Walt Emerson, who said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." It's easy to have a positive attitude when the track is flat and everything is going your way. Your attitude really only becomes the difference maker when difficult challenges rise before you. In those moments, your attitude is sometimes the only difference between whether you press on or quit. You already know about how to run the race with a good attitude, but there are especially difficult hurdles that everyone must overcome in the course of life. I call them the Big 5 Attitude Obstacles: discouragement, change, problems, fear, and failure.